Saito has been revived, but his runes have faded away. Louise is worried since Saito is now no longer her familiar. Agnes informs Saito and Louise they are being summoned by the Queen while the school celebrates the ending war with Albion. On the journey, the three are attacked by Sheffield, who is revealed to be the familiar of a void mage. At the castle, Henrietta gives Saito a document that would make him a chevalier and effectively a noble. Saito declines because of his lack of Gundare abilities. He remembers the name of the elf who saved him, Tiffania. And Difflinger tells them where to find her. That night, while worrying about recent events, Louise finds Saito on the balcony. She tells him that she is afraid he will leave again, especially with the disappearance of the runes. He reassures them he will not leave despite the absence of their contract. However, when he tries to make out with her, she blows him up. The next day, having demoted him from the status of dog to that of flea, Louise makes Saito run after the carriage on foot. Saito, Louise, and Agnes travel to Tiffany's village, and Siesta joins them. Louise gets into another fight with Saito and walks off. Agnes makes a wooden sword and spars with Saito. The next day, they find Tiffania, who is happy to see Saito again but whose chest size shocks Louise and Siesta. Late are that night at Tiffany's hut when Saito tries to clear up a misunderstanding. Louise runs off and Siesta follows, but they are attacked by Sheffield, who summons Fenrir wolves. Louise loses her wand, and Siesta tries to help but is knocked down. Louise's magic isn't strong enough. Out of desperation, she performs the summoning, and Saito surprisingly appears again, forcing Sheffield to retreat. They renew their contract with a kiss. And Saito gets his Gundare runes burned onto his hand again. Saito and Louise are about to share an intimate moment until Siesta interrupts. Sheffield reports to her master, Joseph. Tiffania travels back to Tristane with the group. While introducing herself to the queen, she is asked to remove her hat, revealing her elf heritage with her long pointed elf ears. Although elves are shunned by human society, Tiffania explains that she is in fact a half-elf. Her mother was an elf who died years earlier and her father was the Archduke of Albion. Henrietta shows compassion for Tiffania. They discuss Sheffield's comment about other void mages. Henrietta offers to knight Saito again and he accepts. Siesta then announces she is Saito's personal maid by order of the queen. Much to Louise's frustration, Tiffania is also revealed to be cousins with Henrietta, and she decides to stay at the castle until she figures out what she wants to do. Saito, Louise, and Siesta return to the academy for a big celebration. Gish is now the captain of the student corps known as the Knights of Odin and has appointed Saito their vice-captain. Reynold, Malekon, and the Odin Knights carry Saito away. Since returning to the academy, Saito and Louise have spent less quality time together since he has been busy training with the Knights of Odin. Tiffania shows up as a transfer student who attracts attention from the boys and arouses jealousy not only from Louise but also from a noble student named Beatrice, who later bullies Tiffania until Saito and Gish intervene. The next day, Tiffania unveils her elf heritage in front of a class, and Beatrice uses her religious authority to put Tiffania through an interrogation where she will be punished by being placed into a cauldron of boiling water. Saito tries to intervene, but after Gish warns him that his actions would put his beloved in danger, Saito begs Beatrice for mercy. When she refuses, Saito draws his sword. He and the Odin Knights fight Beatrice's knights until Louise, who was having a pleasant dream about Saito, ends the conflict with a giant explosion. She then clarifies that Beatrice has no real authority to conduct the trial. When her sycophantic followers desert her, Beatrice is utterly crushed, but Tiffania forgives her. Visiting Saito in the infirmary, Tiffania asks him to check her breasts to see if they are real or fake, but Louise and Siesta show up in time to witness this, with a typical reaction from Louise. Saito is ordered to sign a confession that states he took ADV. Antage of Tiffany in the infirmary and promises to never touch anyone else's breasts. He refuses and insists that Tiffany asked him first. As the girls thank the boys by showering them with gifts, Gish, Gimli, Reynolds, and Malikon try to cheer Saito up by having Vidandi dig a peephole to the girls' bath. They observe as Tiffany confirms to Louise that she asked Saito to check her, and Louise worries about her response but denies they are lovers. The whole is noticed and the girls swiftly find and punish the boys, except for Saito, who escapes thanks to Tabitha, who then passes out. A bar, ND of magical dolls arrive and dance in a formal ball. As they do every night, they remind Saito of his first dance with Louise, and Louise shows up. She asks Saito if he peeped, and Saito admits it, but only because the boys dragged him. They reconcile and embrace until Tabitha wakes up naked. Louise then forces him to sign the paper again. Scarron and Jessica encourage Siesta to try harder to in Saito's heart and give her a love dust potion. Louise drags a tied-up Saito to her room. Siesta argues with Louise that she can treat Saito better, and negotiates for 1 hour for that purpose. In Siesta's room, she tells Saito they get to act like newlyweds, but Saito is too conscious of the situation and asks for food. After failing to seduce Saito with the naked apron, Siesta attempts to try out the potion but accidentally drops it on Montmorency, who inhales it and falls in love with Louise, who was nearby. This time the potion's effects are spread by kissing. Montmorency and Louise affect Jessica, Beatrice, and Scarron. They go after Tiffany, but she casts a memory spell to wipe their memories and restores them. Montmorency forgives Siesta for causing the mess. Later, Tabitha receives a special mission. As she heads out with Silford, Sheffield flies alongside and tells her if she does well on the mission she can cure her mother. Siesta continues to annoy Louise but proposes to Top if Saito can locate Louise at the Sleipnir Ball, a party where the participants disguise themselves as their ideal person by using the Mirror of Truth. The night of the ball, Louise transforms into Catalia. While her classmate pick knights, Beatrice and her friends chose Tiffany. Gish chooses himself. On the way to the ball, Saito sees a dark shape that flies overhead. He finds Louise at the balcony and after some confusion over his continue where they left off remark, they embrace and kiss. Meanwhile, Sheffield disrupts the party and the mirror is shattered. Saito discovers he is holding Henrietta, who chose Louise as her role model. The two almost kiss again before Louise sees them and runs away in tears. Saito chases her but is stopped by Tabitha, who is allied with Sheffield and attacks him. Louise is confronted by Sheffield and allows herself to be hypnotized. Saito eventually defeats Tabitha but spares her life. He frees Louise from Sheffield's spell, but Louise's anger causes her to fall. Saito eases Louise with a kiss but they are surrounded by enemy gargoyles. Suddenly a wave of fire magic from the large dragon shape saves them, an airship with Kache and a living Mr. Colbert. And Sheffield and Tabitha flee. Colbert is alive, he had faked his death thanks to Tabitha. Using knowledge from the Zero Fighter, he constructed the airship called Ostland with an advanced coal-burning steam engine and invites everyone on it. Saito worries about what to say about Tabitha. Louise is still suspicious about what she witnessed between Henrietta and Saito and enlists the help of Siesta and Tiffany to capture Saito and find out the truth by using a magic item that will reflect what happened the previous night. Pursued across the ship under the mistaken Empress Cyan, the magic item will strip him naked. Saito hides into the boiler room, which reminds him of his world. Saito is finally cornered by the increasingly desperate trio, but instead, the magic item reveals Tabitha's involvement in the previous night's escapade. Kache reveals Tabitha's past to everyone and deduces that it was King Joseph of Gallia who was trying to abduct Louise. Saito and Henry TTA have difficulty meeting one another throughout the event, but the affair concludes with Louise's resolution to trust Saito, while Siesta remains concerned. Meanwhile, Tabitha returns to her family home to find it wrecked and her mother missing. A mysterious person calling himself Bidashal easily defeats her and Silford and takes her prisoner. The Ondine Knights are searching for evidence Ragar. Ding Tabitha when a nude girl drops from the sky onto Malicon and then hugs Saito. Louise reacts to this by kicking Saito in the groin. The girl, who calls herself Ilokaku, talks about saving her older sister, referring to Tabitha. Ilokaku describes how Tabitha has been arrested as a traitor and stripped of her chevalier title, and how Tabitha's ill mother was also arrested. When Ilokaku asks for help, Malicon and Saito volunteer promptly, but the others doubt her status as Tabitha's younger sister. Tabitha is rather flat-chested and Ilokaku has large breasts. Ilokaku thinks about obtaining proof and rushes out the door. The Ondine Knights rush out as well, only to find that Ilokaku has vanished. Almost immediately, Silford appears and testifies for Ilokaku. Saito, Gish, Malicon, and Louise go to Henrietta to ask for permission to go to Gallier and rescue Tabitha, but she denies their request on the grounds that as her personal knights if Tabitha is rescued by the Ondine Knights while she is still considered a criminal, the rescue could be perceived as an act of aggression on Tristane's part. In response, Saito, Gish, and Malicon resign as knights in order not to implicate Tristane. And Henrietta responds by having them arrested. Ilokaku warns the others about their impending arrest. Louise confronts Henrietta and asks her what she thinks of Saito, as a man and not a chevalier. And Henrietta admits that she is not sure if she has really fallen for Saito or simply needs someone to lean on. Louise declares she will help Tabitha as she renounces her nobility. And Henrietta has no choice but to arrest her too. Although Saito is overjoyed Louise did something selfless for once. After trying, unsuccessfully, to dig their way out of the prison with spoons, the 4 prisoners are rescued by Kerche and Colbert. Deflinga forces Ilokaku to reveal that she is really Silford, a nature dragon that can assume human form, much to Malicon's dismay. In Gallia, Tabitha is reunited with her mother and told by Bidashal Vitashal, an elf working for King Joseph, that she will be made to drink the same potion that destroyed her mother's mind. Saito and company take refugees in the charming fairy inn while the search for them continues. A plan is hatched to use the Ostland to fly towards Germania as a decoy while everybody else goes across the Gallia border directly. Scarron provides disguises for them, while Colbert, Siesta, Gimli, and Reynard proceed to liberate the Ostland. Siesta shows doubts at first of not having any powers but is enraged by Saito that she could still help. She hugs him, so Louise kicks him in the groin from behind again. In Gallia, Joseph and Sheffield uncover a massive object, which Joseph calls Jormungand Cove, and with pulsing veins with a single large eye. Posing as a traveling circus, Saito and company cross the border while Louise broods over no longer being an aristocrat, realizing she only has Saito left. Back at the castle, using Siesta as a distraction, Gimli and Reynard take out 2 guards and they board the Ostland, after dispatching 2 more groups of guards. Colbert quickly fires up the Ostland, eventually ripping it free of the chains. Agnes falls for the ploy, ordering guards to watch the Germania border. Louise sprains her ankle and Saito tells her to rely on him, carrying her on his back. She wonders how Saito can be so strong, despite being alone in this world. The Ostland is eventually stopped by Tristan Dragon Knights, and Agnes nearly strikes Colbert upon seeing him alive. Saito and the gang arrive in Gallia as Tabitha, sitting by her unconscious mother's bedside, begins to lose hope. Using her persuasion talents, Kerche discovers that Tabitha is being held in Alhambra Castle. Upon arriving there, the gang decides upon a plan of attack. Under the pretext of having a stage show, they have the soldiers drink alcohol laced with sleeping potion. Kache reveals that she knows Louise is a void mage, apologizes for her past behavior, and invites her over to Germania. Later on, Deflinger advises Saito to say something kind to her, saying that void magic is dependent on emotional strength. Saito decides to do so and finds her posing in front of a mirror in a dancing costume. Louise begins to tempt Saito and he pushes her onto the bed, but they are interrupted by Gish. Interesting, Agnes frees Colbert. She tells him that she cannot forgive him for burning her village, but has a chance to end the cycle of hatred that would erupt should she kill Colbert. Back in Alhambra, the local baron wants Louise to attend to him personally, and she agrees, planning to drug his wine, but the sleeping potion has slipped out of her slightly too large dancing top. Saito and Tiffania find the bottle and go to rescue Louise, Tiffania using her memory spell to wipe the baron's memories. Having drugged all the soldiers, they encounter Bidashel, who easily stops their attacks using counter. Deflinger tells Louise to cast Dispel on him, which she does, allowing Saito to break through Bidashel's counter. Tiffania stops Saito from killing Bidashel, who tells them where Tabitha is and lets them go, warning them that Joseph is a cold-blooded man and that it won't end there. At her mother's bedside, Tabitha is awakened by Ilokaku and Saito and cries in joy upon seeing the gang, as Sheffield spies on them. As the reunited gang makes their way through a forest back to Tristane, Louise has a nightmare in which she loses the ability to cast magic. Waking up, she finds that her nightmare has come true. Saito finds Tabitha reading a book Bidashel had given her, and she begins to teach him how to read this world's language, but Louise interrupts, telling Saito that she can no longer use magic. Tabitha says that she will protect Saito since Louise is unable to do so. Interesting, Henrietta dispatches the Ostland and Colbert to rendezvous with Saito, carrying a type of cannon revealed to be a German Flak 36, and Agnes offers the assistance of the Musketeer Corps. Saito, under Tabitha's guidance, learns to read quickly, while Louise broods over her inability to cast magic. Overhearing Tabitha telling Saito that under the influence of Gundir, the heart will experience changes, Louise wonders if Saito loves her because of Gundir's influence. Just before crossing the border, the Jormungand, a square-class golem with Sheffield on its shoulder, lands in front of the carriage, blocking off the route into Tristan. Ilokaku changed back into Silford, and S.H. and Tabitha launch into the air in order to lure Sheffield away. Saito realizes her objective is Louise, but Louise jumps out of the carriage and is captured. Gish, Kerche, and Tabitha's attacks prove ineffective against the golem. Louise decides to sacrifice herself for her friends. Saito leaps to attack the golem again, releasing Louise, and Slifford saves them in time. Colbert has unloaded the cannon, which Saito examines using his powers. He quickly fires at the golem but is stopped by counter. Colbert, Kerche, and Malicon unleash their most powerful spells and manage to stop its advance. Deflinger tells Saito that Dispel needs to be cast onto the missile, but Louise keeps saying that she can't do it. Tabitha then kisses Saito, causing feelings of intense jealousy to erupt in Lou. Aizen activating her void powers again. Louise casts Dispel on the cannon shell, which successfully pierces the counter and destroys the golem. Aboard the Ostland, Louise awakens to see Saito. He hugs her, saying he genuinely does love her. They look at each other and kiss. Back in Tristane, Louise kneels before the queen, awaiting punishment for defying her. Instead, Henrietta awards her the royal mantle, declaring that Louise is now her sister and second successor to the throne. She also returns to Saito, Malicon, and Gish their chevalier cloak, reinstating their noble status. She then welcomes Tabitha as Princess Charlotte back to Tristane. The ending credits show Louise trying to explode Saito when she sees Tabitha holding on to him, but Silford grabs Saito and escapes with him and Tabitha.